Hi there folks, we're harvesting garlic today. Our process is the same as last year's, so I will link you to the video which I shot for you last July, and you can find there all of the reasoning, the whys and the hows of our process. And just to recap, we're quickly opening up the soil using a small garden digging fork, and this allows us to easier pull out the garlic and later weed some of the weeds in this bed, the residual weeds. And after all of the garlic has been pulled out of the bed, it's left in a shady spot to cure for a week, after which we clean it up and prepare it for storage. I don't want to repeat all of the last year's video and everything I've said there, so I decided this year to show you just a little detail about growing our garlic in a very clay heavy soil. So you already saw the time lapse. It's similar to the last year's. We had a great garlic harvest, and I'll talk about that in a second. But I wanted to quickly show you the reason why we are using a digging fork to harvest the garlic, and one of the peculiarities of growing anything like root crops in clay soil. So this is the clump of soil which came out with the garlic head and the roots. You can see that the roots are torn at the bottom, so they go deeper down. But those are the main feeder roots, the main clump of roots, and it's holding tightly to this nice clump of clay soil. This soil, it looks rather solid, but you can see that it presents no problem for the tender garlic roots to pass through. And if I start pulling it apart gently, you can see that it's not as dense as you would expect from such a clay soil, and it falls apart rather easily. It's not friable, it's not like a sandy loam, but each of those pieces is a maze of uh, soil inhabitants, burrows, channels left over from the roots, and you can pick apart each individual soil piece and take that apart as well, and even the smallest pieces have burrows in them. So the garlic has no problem growing in this soil, but the part, okay, I found a tiny worm here. Go ahead. But the most important part is that this soil, it compacts very easily, especially when wet. There is some residual moisture here from our watering 2 days ago, so this is not dry soil, it's moist to the touch. And if you start compressing that soil, even by walking on it, it will become as a clay pot. If you take one of those easily broken apart pieces full of microscopic life, which I'm sure that probably won't be visible in the video, but there are a ton of critters growing here, and if you get one of those pieces and start compressing it, pretty soon, maybe in a couple of seconds, it will turn into a clay ball. And with a bit of water, I can even fashion some clay shape. Very smooth, and if you let this to dry, the kids do that all the time as a game, from making figurines from garden soil. You get a perfect clay figurine, a bit cracked, but you can see that the clay content is so high that it acts a bit like plasticine. You can mold it very easily, and now this is basically unsavable. You have to dilute it with water, and or just add it to the compost to be worked by the soil life, to be turned back into the clay soil. And you can see the massive difference between two of those pieces. So soil porosity, No digging as much as possible, cover crops, living roots, soil biome, they all work to turn this clay pot soil into this amazing growing medium, this ecosystem, which it presents its own challenges. But yeah, as you can see from our garlic, it grows pretty decent root crops. It's been a week after the garlic harvest, and you can see that the stems are all yellowed and dry, and all of the outer layers of the skin are easily peeled off. This table on which we spread the garlic gets direct sun only very early in the morning, and afterwards it's shaded by the neighbor's house and the big ash tree which we have in the yard. So the garlic spent the week there, and it's now ready to be processed and stored. Our process is very simple. We cut the roots short, removing most of the soil which they're still holding. We then peeling the outer layer, the outermost skin of the garlic, which is usually has some soil on it. So the heads, the individual heads remain clean. And then we are trimming the stems to a specified length. As our garlic is hardneck variety, you cannot braid it in braids, or not, at least not easily, and you can store it upright in a vase, such as the one which I've put on the table. So the kids are helping me trim the roots and peel the outermost skins and trim the stems, and we are counting and sorting the garlic. We filled the plastic crate with 220 garlic heads, and there's another bowl of about 20 or 30 heads which were overripe and they fall apart. So that makes the harvest round out to about 250 garlic heads, which is a very good harvest considering we planted 360 cloves and 8, maybe 50 or more garlic plants during the spring when it was still green and young and tender. And then we started pulling garlic and eating when it was at its milk stage, which means the head was formed, but it was still not ripe. Plus, as you probably know if you've seen my previous video, we've had some damage on the garlic early in its development by the neighbor's hens. I have a separate video about that, which I'll try to remember to link. I think that we overall lost maybe not more than 30 to 40 heads to the hens and the winter damage. This is the final sorted garlic and the bowl of overripe heads, which will be the first which we'll be eating in the coming weeks. That was all for today, folks, and I'll catch you in the next one.